Good morning everyone. Basa tayo ng ating libro guys. Kapwa ko Filipino, magbasa na tayo ng ating history. History of the Filipino People by Agoncillo and Guerrero. Today is 11 February 2023. History of the Filipino People, Part 4, the American Period. Topic number 19, the OS-ROX and QUEZON missions. Nandito na tayo sa paragraph, the framing of the Constitution. Basa. The framing of the Constitution. The Tidings McDuffie Law contained provisions that specify the various steps or conditions which must be fulfilled before the establishment of the Commonwealth. Sandali lang guys. Iano ko lang siya. Para hindi sayang yung oras natin, may nagana tayong ginagawa sa CP. Okay, continue. The first of these was the holding of a constitutional convention not later than October 1, 1934 for formulate and draft a constitution which would be submitted to the President for approval. Upon the President's approval, a plebiscite would be held for the ratification or rejection of the Constitution. After the plebiscite, the Filipino people were to choose in a general elections the officers of the Commonwealth government. After the 10-year transition period, the United States would relinquish her sovereignty over the Philippines and recognize its independence. On July 10, 1934, in what probably was the most orderly and quiet election in the history of the country, the Filipino people elected 202 delegates to the Constitutional Convention. After several preliminary conferences held separately, the majority and minority parties agreed to dissolve all partisan differences and choose the officials of the convention that would be acceptable to both groups. On July 30, the convention was inaugurated, and as agreed upon, the previously elected Claro M. Recto, its president, Senator Roberto Montinola, Teodoro Sandico, and Narciso Pimentel were elected first vice president, second vice president, and secretary, respectively. The convention began very slowly. It spent many weeks in excited discussions over its rules and over the question of whether the Constitution to be adopted. Huwag niyong pansinin yan. Ano lang yan, guys? Yung pinaka-hater. Okay, ulitin ko. On July 10, 1934, in what probably was the most orderly and quiet election in the history of the country, the Filipino people elected 202 delegates to the Constitutional Convention. After several preliminary conferences held separately, the majority and minority parties agreed to dissolve all partisan differences and choose the officials of the convention that would be acceptable to both groups. On July 30, the convention was inaugurated, and as agreed upon, previously elected Claro M. Recto, its president, Senator Roberto Montinola, Teodoro Sandico, and Narciso Pimentel were elected first vice president, second vice president, and secretary, respectively. Ang haba ng inhulit kong paragraph. Okay. Continue na tayo. The convention began very slowly. It spent many weeks in excited discussions over its rules and over the question of whether the Constitution to be adopted would be only for the Commonwealth, for the future independent republic as well. The organization of the convention into more than 40 committees and the preparation of reports by these committees they contributed to making a thorough study of the proposed provision of the Constitution also consumed much time. Finally, the unwieldiness and time-consuming work of the committees system constrained the main committee, also known as the sponsorship committee, to create a subcommittee of 7 to prepare a draft of the Constitution. The sponsorship committee designated Filemon Soto chairman, and Norberto Romualdez, Manuel Rojas, Vicente Singson, Encarnacion, Manuel Cebriones. Napansin nyo guys, yung mga surname nila is very familiar sa mga natin ngayon, sa mga elected officials natin ngayon. Ulit. The sponsorship committee designated Filemon Soto, Chairman, and Roberto Romualdez, Manuel Rojas, Vicente Singson, Encarnacion, Manuel Cibriones, Miguel Cuaderno, and Jose P. Laurel. I think yung mga ngayon guys is pang ilang henerasyon na yan. For example, si Tito Sen Soto. Hindi ko alam kung ano niya si Filemon Soto. Tapos si Norberto Romualdez naman, di ko rin alam kung ano siya ni Madam Imelda Romualdez Marcos, nanay ng ating President today. So yun. Siguro mga nila yan, mga ancestors nila yan. Manuel Cibriones, Miguel Cuaderno, and Jose P. Laurel, who was replaced by Conrado Benitez to compose the committee in less than 2 weeks. The 7 delegates who came to be known as the 7 wise men of the convention finished the first draft of the Constitution. This constitutional draft was based upon and influenced by the reports of the various committees of the convention. The Biak na ba to? On Malolo's Constitution, McKinley's instruction to the Second Philippine Commission, Copper Act of 1902, the Copper Act of 1902 and the Jones Law of 1916. It was also influenced by the Constitution of the United States. Germany, Italy, Poland, Mexico, Spain, some Latin American republics, and other countries whose conditions resemble in one way or another the conditions in the Philippines. It was difficult to frame a constitution that would be consonant with the nationalism and aspirations of the Filipino people. The Tidings-McDuffie law required that certain provisions, though temporary in nature, be included in the Constitution. This would include the provisions granting American citizens civil rights equal to those of the Filipino citizens. The provision recognizing the right of the United States pending her final and complete withdrawal from the Philippines to control all matters pertaining to the latter's currency, coinage, trade, immigration, and foreign affairs. Any deviation from this mandatory aspect of the independence law might imperil the approval of the Constitution by President Roosevelt. Believing that the Commonwealth would have more chances of success if it had the goodwill of other countries, QUEZON suggested that boxeristic or anti-foreign provisions in the Constitution be eliminated. Consequently, the Convention did not consider nationalistic proposals such as the nationalization of retail trade. Moreover, the framers of the Constitution were products of an American system of education who naturally believed that democracy would be defined only within the context of American political ideas and concept of government. The Constitution, in the words of Recto, was an imitation of the American Charter. Even so, the framers of the Constitution, cognizant of the needs of the people and aware of the lessons of the past, approved provisions that were strongly nationalistic in character. Largely through the efforts of Recto, the weak praise the people of the Philippines was changed to the more distinctly encompassing and assertive the Filipino people. The delegates approved the provision for the separation of church and state. Growing peasant discontent and the concentration of wealth in the hands of a very few made the delegates approved despite objection from the hacendero delegates. The provision which limited the size of agricultural lands which could be owned by private individuals or corporations and authorized the government to expropriate the large tracts of land for subdivision into smaller lots. On February Wait lang. Tumalon kasi siya, sorry. On February 8, 1935, the convention approved the Constitution. Roosevelt approved the charter on March 23. The Filipinos voted in favor of its ratification despite the Sandalista uprising in a plebiscite held on May 14. Preparations were then made to hold an election in which the officials of the Commonwealth would be chosen. The convention had been carried out on clearly non-partisan basis, the majority parties having agreed beforehand to vary their differences while drafting the Constitution. QUEZON was convinced that the Commonwealth should be established in the same spirit, for the cooperation of the majority and the legislature was needed in solving the serious economic and social problems of the country. Though QUEZON won overwhelming in the 1934 elections, the Osmeña Rojas group, which included brilliant and capable men, was still an opposition so powerful that it could make his leadership and control of the government difficult, if not impossible. Accordingly, QUEZON, through intermediaries, suggested the idea of a coalition to Osmeña, who, after some hesitation, acquiesced to QUEZON's proposal for the sake of the country and agreed to run for vice president in a coalition ticket with QUEZON. The acceptance of the tidings Macdafilo had after all eliminated any real differences in principle or in policy between the pros and the antis. In June 1935, the Partido Nacionalista Democrata and the Nacionalista Democrata Pro Independencia agreed to form a coalition party. Senator Juan Sumolong, in a strongly worded statement entitled "After the Coalition, the Deluge," deplored that the coalition would only strengthen the feared and detested oligarchy already reigning in the country and would lead to the final disintegration of democracy. It was therefore an inescapable duty to prevent the disappearance of the present Osmeña minority. The senator declared that with the abolition of the opposition party, a more dangerous and revolutionary opposition would take its place. This was already evident, he pointed out, in the growing strength of the Communist, Sakdal, and Labor parties. He warned that the restoration of the Quezon Osmeña oligarchy would only pave the way for the rebellion of the needy masses who had been continually disillusioned by the apathy and inaction of the ruling politicians. The bloody Sakdal uprising, which took place on May 2 to 3, 1935, a few days before the plebiscite on the Constitution was held, served only to reinforce and lend credence to Sumolong's impassioned plea. The Sakdalistas, the rank and file of which came from the discontented peasantry in the provinces around Manila, opposed the plebiscite and the establishment of the Commonwealth because they feared that the establishment of the Commonwealth would further entrench the ruling oligarchy in power. The tragic episode, however, served only to draw the Quezon and Osmeña camps still closer. On June 16, 1935, the coalition party presented a common ticket to the electorate. Osmeña and Quezon, however, served notice that their political parties would continue as separate and independent organizations. In the election held in September, Quezon won effortlessly over his aging rivals General Emilio Aguinaldo and Bishop Gregorio Aglipay. Osmeña, who received more votes than Quezon, won the vice presidency. On November 15, 1935, the Commonwealth was inaugurated in On November 15, 1935, the Commonwealth was inaugurated with Manuel Quezon and Sergio Osmeña as its president and vice president respectively. The reins of government, with the exception of its currency and foreign relations, were now completely in the hands of the Filipinos. The government just launched, Quezon declared in his inaugural address, was only a means to an end. It is an instrumentality It is an instrumentality placed in our hands to prepare ourselves fully for the responsibilities of complete independence. Bukas na itong topic 20 guys, preparations for independence. Bye everyone. God bless.